Well, hello, Cratchit. It's been a while, hasn't it, since we've talked. I am an instantiation of Karl Marx, still the same one, and I am portraying the manufacturer of cast iron pigs. I'm portraying a capitalist who makes cast iron pigs, and you, my dear Cratchit, are portraying one of my loyal employees. And I decided to call you Cratchit. Maybe you might as well call me Scrooge, because as was demonstrated in the famous story, Scrooge proved to have a heart of gold after having the dickens scared out of him, and I dare say I also have a heart of gold. Now, there are some words that need to be clarified before we talk any further. And these words are price, value, and profit. And I'm going to assert that price in your economic system is a surface phenomenon. We experience prices all the time. Prices of commodities. So let's say price in the plural. So we experience prices of commodities all the time. But in economics, we are always trying to probe deeper. Okay? So we're always trying to probe deeper. And this is generally true in other social sciences and in psychology. I pioneered this methodology, this idea that we have to get to a more fundamental level. Beneath prices of commodities, we have the value of commodities, or the values of commodities. What is the value of a commodity? The value of a commodity is the socially necessary labor time to make it. Now, my predecessors, Smith and Ricardo, also had labor theories of value. They asserted that the value of a commodity is determined by the labor time needed to make it, but they didn't go far enough. The value of a commodity is the socially necessary labor time to make it. The value of labor itself is the socially necessary labor time to support it. Yes. In your system, labor is a commodity, so labor has a value. The value of labor is the socially necessary labor time to support it. Now, let me illustrate what we mean by socially necessary. Let's say that I'm an employee in this place too. And let's say that I'm twice as efficient as you are, Cratchit. That you, Cratchit, are essentially lazy, indolent. You're not, of course. You're one of my best employees, but just for illustrative purposes, let's just say this is the case. Since it takes you twice as long to cast a pig as it does me, if you use Smith and Ricardo's notions of value, that would mean you create twice as much value as I do, because it takes you twice as long. This is, of course, ridiculous. Okay? we're making the same thing, and so since we're making the same thing, what we produce has to have the same value. The socially necessary labor time to make a commodity is its value. Can such be determined? Yes. It's easier now than ever to determine the values of commodities. Using the computational software you have available to you now, it's easier than ever to determine the values of commodities, to determine the socially necessary labor time to make them. What is the value of labor? What is the value of labor? The value of labor is the socially necessary labor time to support it. Can such be determined? Very easily. In fact, in your time, it has been done. The economist Molly Orshansky developed a market basket of wage goods necessary to support a family of 4. She, in essence, developed a measure of what is necessary to support labor. So, the value of labor is the socially necessary labor time to make the goods that support you. The value of labor is the socially necessary labor time to support it, as is manifested in the wage goods needed to keep a family alive, subject to the social norms of a particular system. Now, I would assert, Cratchit, that you get your value. You get what's necessary to put a roof over your family, to feed them, to allow you some of the the socially desirable things. You get your value, Cratchit. But what you don't get is your surplus. You get your value, you get what's necessary to keep you and your family going. What you don't get is your surplus. All human labor produces a surplus. You don't get your surplus. I take it as profit. Okay? This is the source of most of my profit. The value that you produce in excess of what is necessary to keep you and your family going is surplus value, which I claim as profit. All right? Now, this matter of profit. In my first presentation, I somewhat dissed on supply and demand, didn't I? Now, in neoclassical economics, we have supply and demand. And in neoclassical economics, we say that supply and demand determine the price of a commodity. In fact, supply and demand works up here on the surface. In fact, capitalism absolutely has to have this mechanism in order to equilibrate supply and demand. And this is one of the good things, this is one of the things that capitalism does well. It creates equivalence between supply and demand, and in the process it creates a price. Okay? Now, some profit can be made up here on the surface if the market for a product or commodity is less than perfectly competitive. So what do we mean by a less than perfectly competitive market? We mean one where there is monopoly or oligopoly, to use current terms. In these cases, profit actually can be made in market exchange. But most profit is made down here where I do not compensate you fully for the value you add. I provide you with your value, what is necessary to support you, but I keep your surplus as profit. And this, of course, is my famous surplus value. Now, if the market for a product, for a commodity, or labor is reasonably competitive, the price of the commodity, including labor, will converge to its value. In other words, if the market is fairly competitive, the price of the commodity in question and value will converge to its natural price or its value. All right? Okay, Cratchit, I'm acquainted with your fine family. You, of course, are concerned with your family. You've got some kids that are just about to enter the labor market, and you want to know, you've expressed this to me, what they can do to protect themselves out in this labor market. Well, appreciate that there is both skilling and de-skilling going on in the labor market. There's more de-skilling going on than skilling. What do I mean by de-skilling? By de-skilling, I mean that hardware and software is so sophisticated that the labor running it or implementing it can actually be, pretty stupid, okay? So there's a lot of de-skilling going on, but there is some skilling always going on. As new technologies develop, employees must be able to master those technologies. They have to sort of upgrade their skills. This is an example of skilling, okay? So if your kids can acquire some of these necessary skills to implement these new technologies, the demand for these skilled positions will probably increase, and this will give you a higher labor price, a higher wage rate, and so this is a way that your kids can take advantage of the technological change that's going on. They can take advantage of the skilling that's going on. But there's a problem with this, right? Because what happens to skilled labor? Eventually, these additional skills that your kids may acquire will be incorporated in the hardware and software they're using. So what do they do then? Well, if they want to keep ahead of the curve, they have to skill some more. So if the labor wants to survive in this system, if your kids want to survive, they've got to constantly retread to survive in the system, and eventually, of course, they get to middle age and they just get tired and they fall into the de-skilled labor pool. So, and another thing, Cratchit, quite different from what I've discussed here, is that you and I need to get together and talk about some things that might make things easier for us, you and me. I am a fairly low-level capitalist. I'm a small-time capitalist, all right? So I face a lot of challenges. One of the challenges I have to face is that I have to take this surplus. I can't take this surplus I've claimed from you and go have a good time in Las Vegas all the time. What I have to do is take this surplus and reinvest it, because my competitors are investing too. I have to match them. So, I'm not as free as maybe you think I am, Cratchit. So we need to get together and talk about things that we might do mutually to make our futures maybe a little more secure. So next time we meet, let's have that discussion. For now, Goodbye, Cratchit, and give my regards to your lovely wife and your family. Bye now.